Welcome to our flip video on decimals on a number line and representing decimals with money. Let's get started. So remember, a decimal represents a part of a whole, not a whole number, but a part of a whole. So when I count here using this number line, I need to remember that I'm counting by decimals. So if I start here and I say this is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, and 10/10, that works. So I'm going to say this is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10/10 would be one whole. Then I can place these decimals on the number line. So 7/10 would go right here, 3/10 would go here, and 8/10 would go here. Remember, always number and label your number line before you start figuring out where things go. So this is the same number line again. So I know, but I'm going to double check. This is 1/10, 2, 3. So I know that I've got all my number line numbered with my numbers correctly, and I place these numbers on the number line. Next, I'm going to write two decimals that fall between 2/10 and 8/10. So the two decimals that fall between there are 3/10 and 7/10. Next, what decimal would go here? So if this is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, this should be 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, and 9/10. So this is going to be 6/10. You can also write it as 60/100ths, or if you're being fancy, you can do 6/10 as a fraction. Okay, now I've got this. This is one whole. So I'm going to put this right over here. I'm going to label my number line again. And then I'm going to place my numbers where they belong on the number line. 4/10 and 5/10 on my number line. Okay, what is this one going to be? Well, let me make sure my pattern still works. So this is going to be 1/10. Next, I've got a different number line this time, and I've got numbers like 5/10, 75/100, and 25/100. I have 4 spaces in between here. So if I'm gonna think of this as a dollar. So this is gonna be 25/100. This is going to be 50/100 or 5/10. This is going to be 75/100, and this is going to be 100/100, which is also known as a dollar. So when I figure that out, because I have to include these spaces, this is 1 space, 2, 3, and this is the 4th one. You do have to count this one, even though it's going to be a whole number. So this is my 25/100, 50, or 5/10, and this is my 75/100, and this would be my 100/100, or one whole. So now I've got some whole numbers here. So I have to represent this number line using parts of a whole and whole numbers. So let's see if this works. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, and then this is going to be 10/10 or 1 whole. So this is 1 whole and 1/10, 1 whole 2/10, 1 whole 3/10, 1 whole 4/10, 1 whole 5/10, 1 whole 6/10, 1 whole 7/10, 1 whole 8/10, 1 whole 9/10, and this would be 2 wholes or 20/10. So now I'm going to put my 1 whole 5/10 on here, my 1 whole 2/10, and my 1 whole and 8/10. Also 1 whole and 20/100, 1 whole and 50/100, or 1 whole and 80/100. Again, this is what decimal would go on this number line, so I want you to figure this one out. If I know that this